Well, welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. I'm Mercy Ajashafir.
And I'm Rafai Hussaini. Great to have you again, Mercy.
Wonderful to have you again. So, with the recent statistics released by the National Population Commission saying that over 30% of women in Nigeria were married before the age of 15, the issue of child rights is on the front burner. The shock that some northern states have not signed the child right law also leaves a sour taste in many mouths. Now, joining us now to discuss solutions and the rapid neglect of child rights in Nigeria is Sharon Oladiji, a child rights expert from UNICEF. Good morning, Sharon. Thank you so much for joining us. So we've heard the figures that have been released. 44% of Nigerian girls are married before the age of 18. Now, in 2017, 17% were married by the age of 15, and 43 married by the age of 18. Now, those figures are a little bit disturbing, very, very alarming, Shola. What is Nigeria doing to actually combat the high amount of child bride marriages?
Well, what we can do is what we're doing now, talking about it, bringing it to the fore of development, letting people know, the effect of giving our girls at a very early age in marriage. Because when we take the percentage of those who are, say, like 15 years old are already married, you see this is just 2 years beyond being a teenager. And you can imagine what we see with our teenage children that need a lot of protection, they need a lot of direction, they need a lot of time to understand them, they need you to put them, in the right place, give them the right values. So when you use, at that stage, maybe 2 years later, that child is married, then you can see a lot of, if you allow me to use the word, a kind of arrested development.
Yes.
That means you're married, your education is affected, it affects the way you go on. This is Nigeria, this is a global village. These are young people that should be educated, that should be helped to bring out their potentials. These are people, when a woman is raised properly, when a woman is educated, it affects everything about the home, about the society. We have things, for example, in the work, can I go on?
Please, no, carry on.
The work that I do, an educated girl knows how to provide hygiene for the child. An educated woman, rather, knows when to register the birth of the child. An educated woman knows how to give education to his or her child. So when a child is 15, is not educated, then it affects everything that child. It affects, bringing out the potentials of such people. So what we're doing is affecting, bringing out potentials of so many women who, when they grow up, should be able to contribute to the society. But the marriage, kind of stalled the development.
All right, and that's very shocking and quite very painful, Shola. But more shocking is the fact that 12 northern states have not signed the child right law, which is very scary. And this should protect the rights of a child. What are the rights of a child? Those are the fundamental human rights of a child as put out there by the United Nations, that we all should embrace and support. Because if you don't understand the right of a child and you've not signed it into law, how can you foster the development of that child? And we keep saying these children are the future leaders. So what is happening? 12 states in the north have not put pen to paper on this.
We keep on advocating. Law is dynamic, and you take your step at a time to persuade people, to convince people on the benefits, on the essence of having laws that protects the welfare of the children, that prevents abuse for children. It's not ended yet. We have states, that we're talking with. We have good, resource persons. And now with the new dispensation coming in, we hope that we can make a lot of inroads to ensure that laws that protects the rights of children, that prevents violence and abuse of children, that makes room for development of children and survival of children are in place in the north. But it is not closed yet. We're taking a day at a time, a step at a time. And you will agree with me that there's so many issues, you know, that are confronting the nation, and this is one of them. And I believe that with time, as we move on in this new dispensation, we should be able to get more northern states to pass the child rights law.
Now, you know, the interesting thing is that for me as a young woman, this is one of those cases that is very, very dear to my heart. I mean, the figures are absolutely astronomical. And I have to say, Auntie Shola, you were actually right. According to the 2017 World Bank study...
It's Sharon.
Sharon. Good morning. Thank you. Now it says Shola.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
that was correct. Please do forgive us. That was incorrect information. Now, the World Bank study in 2017 estimates that child marriage costs Nigeria $7.6 billion in lost earnings and productivity. So what I want to ask you is, why are we seeing such high cases of child marriages? I do understand that poverty is a factor, gender norms, culture, but considering that according to the Nigerian constitution, the minimum age of marriage is 18, why is it that we're seeing states and places that are actually publicly able to flout this law? Is there an actual reason for this? Because I have to understand, if the age of consent, if the legal age of marriage is 18, how are children legally getting married? Because even though 12 states haven't signed this into their constitution, the legal age of marriage is the same everywhere. So how is it that they're able to actually flout this law?
Yeah.
Well, I need to get you well there. For me, let's take it from the Constitution.
Yes.
For me, we need a lot of pragmatic,
yes,
proactive members of the society that can work with the government to make sure that we abide by the constitutional rights. There are even still some sections in the constitutions that needs to change. Let me digress a little bit on the concurrent list, on the legislative list, for example. Child rights issues are in the concurrent list. We're saying it should be brought to the legislative list. Because when you leave some things in the concurrent list, that means that each state may need to make laws on that. But when we put something in the legislative list, then we can see that it can have federal application. So on the issue of constitution, things that are in the constitution, things that will be enforced, I think we need also, like I said, to keep on, looking for champions, maybe in the media, maybe in the civil society, maybe in the academia, maybe in professional associations. But what I think we need to do as a country, some of us need to come out as champions to say this should be done and this should be done. If you look at other countries, things changed. Things change because we have champions who do not love their lives already, to push. And allow me to say that media is one of those change agents that can effect change. That's the way I can answer that. We put things on the faces of people. We push it, we talk about it, we dialogue about it.
Yeah.
We keep on saying it until, we get it changed. Let me digress a little bit and I'll stop. Look at the way we did with, or the media did with HIV and AIDS.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
If you look in the last 10, 15 years, the kind of effort, the kind of publicity, the kind of dialogue, the way we push it and even when it comes to stigmatization, it was through the media that we know we don't have to stigmatize somebody that have HIV/AIDS. Yeah. Look at the way giving them antiretroviral drugs. So this is what I think, that when we see things like this that needs to be changed, I think media is a powerful tool to create change. And I hope that with these things we're talking about, we can keep on doing it. We can keep on saying it until we see the changes we're asking for.
All right, Sharon, something just comes to mind. I really want to know, what are the reasons given by these 12 states why they've not put pen to paper on this? And what is even the body of this law? What is in there? So, because when you look at, a document of law, you have a body to it and you have a spirit to the law. So what is the body and the spirit to the law? And what are the reasons why these 12 states have said they are not ready to put pen to paper as regards this? Because this is really very important and this is timely, because we have seen a cost effect of this like Mercy did say, 7.6 billion is no joke.
Dollars.
So what are the reasons for this? And what's the body and the spirit to this? So we can even know where to start advocacy from.
I think there's a lot of misunderstanding of what the law is about. And then with the body of the law, the body of the law is contextual, basically baskets of rights that we need to realize for children. The spirit of the law is that these children are our future tomorrow. The action or inaction of government, of the civil society, of parents, of communities, of not taking care of their children is a huge loss, as you can see, to a nation. So when you breed children that are not well brought up, that don't have good values, that are not educated, that are not preserved, that are not protected, you and me knows what that future stock is all about. But when you have children that are well brought up, that are well educated, that had good families, that had good values, that have education, that are competing the globe, you know, that their potentials can come out with innovation in technology. You and me will also agree on the kind of nation that we will have. So the spirit of the law is this that I just tell you, to ensure the baskets of rights, you know, are realized for children. We have the survival rights. We have development rights. We have participation rights. We have protection rights. The survival rights, you know, addresses when a child, even before a child is born, you raise your children, the kind of things you eat, when you're pregnant, the antenatal issues, when you give birth, the immunization, you know, the health and all this. These are all that is in the survival rights that we should do to our children. When you move to further, is a development rights. So this child is now 1 year old, 2 year old. He has a good development. You give him breast milk, you know, when he's growing up. Then at age 3, this is development. Education. What do you expose your child to? What kind of education? What, you know, what kind of materials? What kind of association? What kind of this is on the development rights? These are all the things that are in the law. Then you move on to participation, meaning that allow a child to express himself or herself so you can direct that child. If you restrain a child from expressing himself or herself, that child also, use the word arrested development. The child cannot express himself or herself. When a child is upset, he can't tell you, you can't help the child, so those are participation rights. Association, you know, then you go to protection rights is a huge, the provision on protection rights under the Child law is quite huge. All that law is saying is prevent abuse, violence, and exploitation of your children. Prevent it, protect them from abuse, from sexual abuse, from emotional abuse, you know, from physical abuse. And these are all that prevent them from trafficking, prevent them from, you know, labor, prevent them, you know, from all kinds of harmful practices. These are the body and the spirit of the law. So when states do not pass this law, there is a bit of misunderstanding of what the law is all about. And when, you know, when there's no law, you know, the impunity is rife. But when there's a law, especially to protect children or to preserve, so what we're saying is that if we don't understand all these baskets of rights, in fact, the Child Rights Act, even in Article 19 or Section 19, even reaches out to the young people themselves and tell them about their responsibilities. So it's not about family alone, it's not about government alone,
Sharon.
It's not about civil society alone, it's also children themselves, you know.
You know, it's interesting, as you've said, Sharon, the truth is, I'm so sorry to interject, like you've said, the truth is, the children of the future and the children of Nigeria are indicative of the kind of country that we are going to live in. And not only the country, the continent as well, because this is not just a problem that is unique to Nigeria alone. It's a challenge that we're facing in Africa, Central African Republic, for example. There are a lot of African countries who are right now fighting the whole child marriage issue.
In fact, Mercy, Nigeria is number 6 on the chart. When you look at it, Central African Republic is number 1. You've got countries like Guinea, number 2. You've got other countries. Nigeria is number 6 on the chart, you know, with this child marriage. So it's a pervasive African problem. And it's something that is constantly happening.
But the thing about it is, I guess, as the most populous black nation in the world, I do believe that we have a responsibility to lead from the front as well. Because the truth is, Nigeria sets the tone for a lot of places. I mean, Sharon, what I wanted to say is that we've been talking a lot about legislature. We understand there are some discrepancies within the law. We've got the Child Rights Act 2003 that we've just discussed, which sets the minimum age of marriage at 18. Now, that actually directly conflicts with the Sexual Offences Bill of 2015, which says, now get this, do you realize, according to the Sexual Offences Bill 2015, the age of consent in Nigeria is 11. 11 years old. That is absolutely shocking, because at the end of the day, at 11 years old, you don't have the cognitive development to actually make up your mind about whether you're ready to be sexually active, let alone get married. So I'm trying to understand whether we need to move away from the law and start focusing on attitudes. Because when you look, I've been looking at quite a lot of research, Sharon, and it seems to state that there are some, and I have to say this quite frankly, there are some Nigerian and some African men who like to marry young girls. And I feel like the issue of pedophilia is something that we don't discuss. Just because a child appears to look physically mature or has gone through puberty at 11 years old does not mean that they are ready physically, mentally, or emotionally to start having sex or to get married. So I wanted to ask you, Sharon, how do we go about changing the attitudes and starting these conversations and actually reaching the grassroots levels where we educate people and speak to men and women and explain to them that it's not just about, oh, that girl is fine or that's small, that's a child. What you're doing is not even just emotionally.
And there are consequences for what you're doing.
Consequences for what you're doing. The entire continent and the country suffers. How do we start having these conversations, these serious conversations that need to happen?
Thank you. We start the conversation by looking for champions. We have a lot of champions in Nigeria who are die-hard protagonists of child rights, of children, development issues. This is where we start from. We look for friends. We look for champions.
Now, if you're just joining us, we've been talking about the issue of child marriages here in Nigeria. So we were just talking to Sharon Oladiji, who is the UNICEF expert on child rights. Now, that was an interesting conversation. I want to get your take. This is, like you said, it's not just a Nigerian issue, it's an African-wide issue. And you know, if we're going to be really honest, it's also a problem that's prevalent in Asia and other parts of the world. But we're talking about Africa right now. As a man, what do you think needs to be done to actually decrease the amount of child rape?
A lot of awareness, number one. It has to be said, a lot of awareness. You can see how the Me Too campaign revolutionized the world.
High five, please.
Know, and it was really very important for me because I did read Rose McGowan's book. In fact, I met Rose McGowan at some point at a book signing in England.
You did?
Yep. And you can see that her story, setting out the Me Too movement in motion, helped a lot. So there needs to be a lot of advocacy.
There needs to be advocacy.
That this is a child. If you assault a child, there are consequences.
There are consequences for your action.
If you sexually mutilate a child, there are consequences. And it goes back to our culture. Africa is a largely patrilineal society. And the society we live in Africa is very, very skewed against women. And it's very shocking.
That is the truth.
But if we have Sharon back, we should get back to Sharon right about now, all the way in Abuja. Sharon?
So, Sharon, before we were cut off, you were telling us how we begin having these very difficult conversations, how we begin the reorientation of society, and most especially, let's be honest, men, to help them understand that the truth is no matter how developed a child is still a child.
Yes. We start with the champions. See, there must be champions for anything we want to change. There must be protagonists. There must be advocates, you know. There must be activists that can help us. And that's the first thing we do. We look for all these people, you know, however they are available, and we know some of them, to begin to talk about it. We use the newspaper, we use the radios, we use now the next level of influential that we can use, the traditional rulers, the religious rulers. A lot of us believe in these our rulers. We believe in these traditional rulers. We believe in our religious rulers. This is what we used when we were doing HIV/AIDS. So we bring them up to talk about it. Now, we look for, let me use the word survivors or victims of what we're talking about. We do documentaries on what had happened. We publicize the documentaries. We show the documentaries as often as possible. Now we look for champions who are men, who are ready to defend the rights of their girls. And then we look for other men to come and tell us why they do what they do, why they prefer to marry a child. So for me, we have to create a hub, you know, of information. We have to do a lot of advocacy. And for me, in Nigeria, advocacy always works with people. When you tell people what to do, when you change the psyche of the nation, people are ready to listen, people are ready to, but this is the little I can say within the time. And I think, talking a little bit about Nigeria, I want to say that Nigeria is a country. We can influence Africa. We can change Africa. Anything we do in Nigeria, you know, Africa can change. That's what I say. We have the number. We have the people. We have the intellectuals. We have what it takes to change all these vices in Africa. We just lack people who are bold, you know, who are practical, who can stand up and begin to do it. Can I put it back to the media?
Oh, wow.
We can raise those people. We can raise the hub. We can create the change.
I love what Sharon's just done. She's literally thrown the buck right back to us.
And we're ready to take the challenge.
Listen, can I add something?
And we're ready to take the challenge.
Yes,
Sharon.
you may. Very quickly, please, Sharon.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example quickly, maybe like a child labor. If you want to deal with children on the street, children walking in the street, the media can come up with a campaign and say, do not buy from that child, do not buy from that child, do not buy from that child. So we put that in people's face. So when you see a child and you don't buy from the child is not selling to it. I can't go back home. And then maybe the parents can have a second thought. This is just an idea.
Thank you so much.
That's it.
Thank you.
And that's the great place to rest it.
No.
And what is most important is that this conversation will definitely continue.
Well, thank you so much. That was Sharon Oladiji, the child rights expert from UNICEF. So this is definitely a conversation that we have to have. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm always quite vocal when it comes to the rights of children. And when we're talking about child rights and the issue that we're facing here in Nigeria, it's such a serious thing. And honestly, I have to go back to the point I made earlier. I have to speak directly to the people because as Nigerians, it is our duty as citizens of this nation to make sure that we are educating our brothers, we're educating our sisters. It is this time that we have to raise awareness of what's happening. It is not enough to just leave it to the leaders and the governments and say, oh, it's the legislators and we have to create laws. Laws have to be enforced and implemented. And who does the implementation? It's we, the citizens of the globe.
It starts from us.
It starts from us.
We take the torch, we take the baton. But most importantly, let me tell you something, Mercy. All of this cannot happen if we have an atmosphere where there's a lot of insecurity. And that's why we need to talk about the insecurity situation and kidnapping
very
next.
Important.
Because it's really important. If there's no security of lives and property,
we don't even have a country.
It's all terrible. So we should talk about security.
You know what, Rafai? I think you're onto something there. You might be a soothsayer. You might be a prophet. You might be a man of the people. You know what, Rafai?